Everyone, welcome to eLearnChat, where talk, it's knowledge. We've got some knowledge to share today. And today we've got with us as a co-host, Lisa Goldstein. How are you, Lisa?
Great, Rick. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, I'm so glad. It's funny. I sent a note to Leslie today, Leslie Price, and I said, are you on today? Her. Because I forgot, I don't remember you being on today. And then I think Harold says, Lisa Goldstein's on. Lisa! Okay, I didn't know. Great. I think I talked about you with Sarah, I don't know, about a month ago, and I totally forgot what day that was. So I'm glad you could make it on, as always. And it always makes for good shows when you're on. So we appreciate you.
Thanks, Rick.
And with us today, we've got Stella Lee. She is coming from beautiful Vancouver, and she'll be on in a moment. Let's run the intro. And we are back, and there she is in that center position of power, as we like to call it. How are you, Stella?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. I'm calling from gloomy Vancouver today. It was sunny earlier, but I think the sun went away. Otherwise, it's good.
We were talking a little bit pre-show, and I didn't realize you had gone to school in Pasadena, not too far from where we are, and that you kind of grew up around this area. And then when did you move to Vancouver?
Only 2 years ago. I was in, I know. I'm fairly new here. I was in Alberta for 10 years before that. Okay. So primarily in Edmonton and Calgary. So I bounced around the world.
That sounds good. Well, Vancouver is gorgeous. It's such a beautiful city. Even when it's gloomy, it's beautiful. So
it is.
It's a nice place. You said you're in the downtown area over there.
Yeah, I am just in Yaletown. Just if you turn to the left, you see the ocean. So nice. not too shabby. Yeah.
Yeah. If you haven't been to Vancouver and you're watching out there, it is just a beautiful city. It's probably one of Canada's prettiest cities, if not the prettiest. And a lot to do.
Well,
there.
I'm biased.
Yeah.
That definitely is. It's a city where we brag about you can go skiing and surfing at the same day.
I know.
Yeah,
it's really true. So just don't do what we did. We went up to where was it? I'll remember later. It was a 5-hour train ride to kind of nowhere, Lillooet. That was so boring. But anyway, we thought Lillooet was something kind of more fun. It was really like northern exposure. There wasn't a lot up there. So it was a whole day.
One moose.
Yeah, one moose. And though it was cute, but we were there for 2 hours and had to take a train back. That was boring. But anyway,
it's a big country. What can I say?
It is. So Stella, what brought you to Vancouver? You've got a company. It's called Paradox Learning. I love the name of that company.
Correct. Thank you.
What made you name it Paradox?
I know lots of people commented on my company name. I was kind of toying with the idea of learning paradox, So I thought, why not? Everything. It's thank you. That's my company site. I thought, things are always there's two sides of the stories, and there's always the conundrum. So I thought I call it Paradox Learning, and it's somehow just the name stuck. And to be honest, the URL was available, so I registered it.
That's good. Actually, it's a great name. It really is.
Thanks. Thank you. I like it, and it somehow it's just stuck. And
Lisa?
Whoops, sorry, I'm speaking on mute. So tell us about what you're most proud of in Paradox. What are some of your favorite accomplishments so far with your business?
I can tell you the story of how I sort of got into consulting work. So I started my company about 5 years ago, and really I came from an academic background, and then I decided I needed to get some corporate experience. So I was in the corporate world for a few years, and I decided, this is great, but I really wanted to do consulting because I get to work on different projects, and I get to, have a larger impact with different organizations. So I started without really knowing like how I'm going to get clients. So when I was in New York, I was on vacation, just taking some time off and trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? How do I get my name out there? I got this email from the UN, from the United Nations. And I thought it was a spam message because, the UN doesn't normally just email you, right? And the logo, to be honest, it wasn't the greatest. So it looked like a spam message. As it turned out, this was from the International Atomic Energy Agency, so the IAEA. So the logo is this little, this atom with the little loops, right? So I mean, how obvious is that? So I nearly deleted it thinking, oh my God, that's just a spam. But as it turned out, my friend that I was staying with at the time in New York, she was like, oh no, this is the legit organization. My mom actually consulted for them. And so I responded, and that's sort of how I get started in my consulting career. I ended up doing a short stint e-learning evaluation and audit for that agency in Vienna. So I loved it because it's the UN. It's surreal just being there. B, they have such interesting variety of e-learning activities going on across the agency, and I get to really dig deep into the content, into the technology, into the setup, and I met the most intelligent, passionate, interesting people. I mean, it's nothing like sitting in a UN cafeteria and you're like, oh my God, there's like half a dozen Nobel laureates just sitting with me. So that's amazing.
So, that sounds like a serendipitous dream. So I'm sure any consultants who are out there listening to this are thinking, how do I get, such an esteemed organization to contact me? So what do you think your secret was? What do you think made them reach out to you and pick you as their consultant?
From what I understand, I think they actually source consultants on LinkedIn. So my advice to you is there's a big world out there. I make sure that you have a good presence. I publish, often, and I publish in different journals and articles and trade magazines, and of course on LinkedIn and other platforms. But I also engage with my communities, right? So I'm on different e-learning groups and committees, and I review conference papers. So I think I'm fairly active in various professional activities and online. And Lisa, I understand you're on Twitter as well. So so I think that's also a good platform to sort of engage and ask questions and share knowledge.
Yeah, and I love this topic of giving advice to others in the industry. So what do you think that, if you don't mind ringing your bell just a little bit more for us, what do you think that people really appreciate about you when they are reading your articles and seeing your benefit? If you were going to ring your own bell, and what you think that people appreciate, what do you think that value is?
You ask such good questions. You do. So I think I have a pretty, people keep commenting on this, so I suppose it's true. They keep saying I have such interesting background. And I think what they meant was that I didn't come from a traditional an education trajectory. I started out as an artist. So I went to art school and I was trained as a painter. So I got my, like nowadays it's design thinking, but it's basically just what we learn in art school, right? Like how do you be creative? How do you innovate? So I have an art and design background. And then I also have a background in communications, focusing on new media and new technology. I have a postgraduate qualification in teaching and learning, and I ended up doing my PhD in computer science. So I think just the multidisciplinary approach really helped me to bring in fresh perspective in understanding the issues. And I think because of my academic training and the time I spent in academia also help prepare me to sort of bring some of that academic speak, some of the research methodology, some of the theories, some of that to sort of translate into practice to say, hey guys, what you guys are talking about here, actually there's a method, for that, and there's a theory for that, there's a framework for that, and I think people appreciate the translation, if you will, between what's being researched and how do you apply that in practice.
Now, that's an interesting background, too, because most people don't start. Like Harold, for example, who you met at the beginning of the show, he's also a fine artist. He has a degree in fine arts and graphics, and we've got him doing all sorts of stuff in here. But but it's really interesting. And to end up with a PhD in computer science, now that's not usual.
I love it. I think it's, I think it's just the other side of the coin, right? I think art nowadays is awfully technical. I mean, the multimedia artists, the installation art that make use of tech. So I don't think I think the lines are blurring. Yeah.
But it's interesting because very different parts of the brain are being used, if you will. And most, I wouldn't say that. Most computer science people are actually pretty creative. It's just they don't get credit for being creative. So it's
I think so.
Yep. No, I've got 20 plus years in IT from before, so I know all about computer science. And it's interesting. Actually, I was going, well, that's an interesting background, good trajectory. And actually, Lisa, didn't you do some programming? Well, you were sort of technical. You were pretty technical, actually.
Oh, yeah, I'm a technical geek. I've always been in love since I was little with anything technology. I'm always trying things out. When Samsung first came out with their Galaxies and they had NFC tags, I put them around the house to give myself reminders like the laundry's done,
Oh, that's cute. You did that.
Swipe your phone next to the NFC tag to program it to do stuff. But now it's getting so much easier with Alexa. Now, Alexa, she thinks I'm talking to her, by the way. But she's another family member, and she reminds us of everything.
That's fine.
So go home just right there.
Yeah. And what about you, Stella? So since you love technology, what are the technologies that you're drawn to?
Oh, many things. Right now, I love I love my Google Home. I think it's just people just think I talk to myself, but I'm like, no, I'm talking to my machines. I don't know. I think technology is interesting when it becomes transparent, right? And when it's not something I pause and think about. So to me, I love the whole smart home integration of things. I can't wait until it becomes one. Tech. So right now, I'm really loving my Google Home. I think it's becoming a little bit my personal concierge. Like first thing in the morning, I'll be like, hey, what am I doing today? Like how should I get there? It's almost like having a housemate, like Lisa is saying. It's like additional family member. And I'm like, oh, what do I am in the mood for? I noticed. That's true.
And I love the Alexa video now.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And so the video is nice because she gives me ideas and reasons to connect with her. So there's always suggestions flying across the screen, a story about this or that, and she says, please ask me about this story.
And I noticed that the way I interact with Google Home and other tech is that, especially Google Home, I think, because it sounds like and it acts like a person. So I would say like, please and thank you to my Google Home.
I want to say that, but it doesn't. I don't know. Does Google Home allow you to do that? I mean, I can call her Alexa's name back up and say it. But if you, does it have a follow-up command with Google? Can you thank Google?
No, but I still do it. I still think she appreciates it.
And are either one of you automating your homes with anything? Or do either one of you have the light bulbs or anything else set up to automate anything?
No, I've got Alexa, but I do want to get the lighting part of it. That sounds actually like a lot of fun. We don't have any home automation other than Alexa, but I think we use them more to play music and get some briefs every so often, and it's pretty cool. I don't have the video one. I was looking at it the other day at Best Buy, going, do I want it or not? So, yeah,
so I'm putting it to use mostly for cooking things. So you can ask for cooking advice, and then it brings up whatever cooking video.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Well, I don't do too much home automation. I think it's just because so much of my work it's tech related. So I kind of like the separation of like not thinking about troubleshooting things at home too much. But although one tech I really love, and I'm paying a lot of attention to that, especially in the learning space, it's the use of chatbots. I don't know if any of you
Fabulous.
have any experience. Yeah. You like it?
Well, we're starting to dabble. So we're trying to look at ways to do a beta with artificial intelligence chatbots to help sort through the mountain of learning resources. Because what happens is our search bar is just like a Google search. You search for a topic and you get 100-something results, and someone doesn't know where to start. So a lot of times the answer to that is turning to a coworker to say, what do you think I should take?
Exactly.
And having a more human interaction that says, can ask you questions like, who are you? What are you trying to accomplish? What tasks are you trying to do? Perhaps can help make a better connection.
Exactly. I think that's tremendous application, especially like, for example, to program that into a already functioning chatbot like Siri. It would be great for organization to leverage that to say, okay, you want onboarding program? Siri can help guide you through these series of steps and get to know the organization. I think in terms of leadership development, I think the coaching and the mentoring aspect of it would be really useful. I also think in terms of knowledge transfer and knowledge management, I think chatbots would have a huge potential in that. Digital literacy skill, I think that's also a good platform to push some of that. And Lisa, you mentioned, like when you do type your search query into the search box, it returns like thousands of results. Like, how are you going to differentiate and figuring out which one is for you? I think one of the things chatbot can help you do is maybe sort of segment them into levels to say, like, you seem like you know nothing about this topic, so let's start with the basics. And here's, the introduction package. And then if it would be intelligent enough that remember your progress or track your progress, say with a learning management system, it would say, oh, it looked like you mastered the first level of this digital skill. Let's progress to the next level. So I think that's there's a lot of applications in that, especially for organizations looking for knowledge transfer.
I just wrote down that idea because that last little bit is genius.
Oh, wow. Okay, we'll talk more offline.
Yeah. So we were talking about Brent earlier, and Brent Schlenker with TLDC, and he recently said something fascinating because we're talking about different technologies, and he's talking about, we asked him about mixed realities, artificial intelligence, and he said, the problem with that is that when you think about people in the real world, who do you know that's walking around using virtual reality? Maybe some augmented reality, but then he followed it up with, and then think about what other technologies are really on the rise in the personal lives of the people you know. And voice related technologies came up in that conversation. So what I think is really fascinating is the energy that a lot of corporations are still putting into, should we be doing something with anything virtual reality or anything related to the different kinds of realities? But you'd never hear anybody saying, should we be doing something with voice, on this topic of, all the different kinds of technologies that are out there and what people really should be using. Do you have any opinions on that about, the best technologies that are being underutilized?
So first of all, I am a huge fan of Brand. So I am I'm in agreement with him. I think that the challenge is, I think, like, something like voice. It's not getting a huge press because it's very generic and it's really hard to grasp the application in organization. And I think maybe that's why it's not getting a lot of coverage, as opposed to AI and virtual reality and mixed reality and all of that. It's, every day every time I look at my feed on Twitter, every day I look at LinkedIn posts, it's full of articles about that. Whether they're accurate or not, that's another issue. But I think a lot of that it's driven by what's the current buzzwords, right? And what's the current what the current trends are. I don't think there's one per se underutilized application, but I think the danger, it's more about, let's not go with what everybody's talking about and try to apply that, because it might not be useful. It might not solve your particular problem. And I think there's a danger in just jumping into the shiny new thing and not thinking through, like, is this a solution to a problem we have, or are we creating something else? Like, I see this in the startup world as well. Like, there's a million apps out there, and a lot of them are really cool, but are they actually solving a problem that I have? Like, are they addressing an issue that would help ease or better my world, right?
That makes sense.
Yeah, but by the way, I do see, so in terms of voice, like voice recognition, voice differentiation, that sort of thing, or text to speech. I think there's a lot of applications in that. I think machine learning is making such progress. I saw an interesting Google Lab project on if you're capturing video and you have multiple people talking, right, at the same time, and if you are, say, hard of hearing, or if you're just like a regular person trying to understand two competing voices, the technology is such that you can program it to not only filter out which voice you can hear, so it would alternate the voice for you. And it's not just based on the sound, but also based on a face recognition algorithm to look at who's talking when, to then separate the conversation for you with, and also with the closed captioning. So I think that kind of application, it's brilliant. It is not something that we actually use, that much, because we're still trying to understand, like, why can we apply that, and it's not to market in a way that it's cheap enough to use it every day either. So I think the maturity needs to get there.
Have either of you read Dan Brown's famous author, the book called Origins?
No, is he the same guy that wrote the Da Vinci Code?
Yes. Now
I read all the other ones, but
he wrote one called Origins. I think it came out either end of last year or this year. Origins is a lot about text to speech, computers handling things, artificial intelligence. It's really quite fascinating. It was a good book. I've only read one of his other books, but this one was a different touch. He's still kind of based a little bit on religion and other things, but the computers played an integral part. It was fascinating, because a lot of it's based on current technology, and a little bit.
So what's your takeaway? What's your takeaway from that book?
I think that artificial intelligence, at some levels, is probably much more advanced than most of us see, at least in some areas, and it's getting more and more advanced as we go. And he was talking too. They were interviewing him, Elon Musk, and others were talking about how artificial intelligence is incredible, but we have to be careful with it. Not because the technology is dangerous, but the people creating the technology could be dangerous. And so, it's some interesting philosophical asides of what could happen. Like you were saying, you've got technology, but then you've got some of the other sides of tech. You've got the ethics of tech. What do we use it for? How do we use it? Who's using it? And it becomes an interesting proposition of are you being manipulated? Are you being controlled? Is it this or that? Because it can be used for a lot of things. And they're finding in research that people get very attached to the voices that they hear from the tech, whether it's Alexa or anybody else, and they start having emotional responses too. So when you start adding emotion to the way people react to a computer voice, you run into some of the possible risks of, what if they start responding too much to Alexa or to whatever? And that leads open the door a little bit towards manipulation or other things, which not that a marketer would ever manipulate anybody. No. But, it just makes you wonder sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I think...
It sounds like...
yeah. Sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
Oh, no, you first.
No. I want to hear you.
I was just going to say, this sounds like another Black Mirror episode. I don't know if you guys have seen that show. I think it's on Netflix. But yeah, that's a great series to take apart all the possibilities of what could go wrong with future tech.
Black Mirror?
Well, I think the scary thing is it's supposedly fictional, but there's so many of that it's actually reality. I think that's the scary thing about Black Mirror. It's that it's actually here. I just want to get back to your point about ethics. I think that's huge. And I've been actually writing and speaking quite a bit about biases and potential risk in applying machine learning and AI in the e-learning applications, right? Because humans program these things, and humans, we all have our biases, and we all have our cultural lens. We all have perceptions that we might or might not be aware of, and so when we create these algorithms, are we perpetuating some of our beliefs? And it's already happening, right? They talk about what was it? I think it's the Amazon same-day delivery. They sort of bypass certain Black neighborhoods. So that was one problem. There's a technology called Compass that's for to help judges to sort of predict how likely a convicted criminal or I think whether they would grant parole to a particular person based on the likelihood this person is going to commit further crime. Again, there's some sort of racial biases with that algorithm, with that program. So there's a lot of examples out there, and I think we haven't quite caught up with like putting some governance and some guidelines around it. I mean, if you looked around who has an AI ethics guidelines, we get Google, and that's also very controversial because they put it out there based on people boycotting the fact that they were working with the U.S. military, right, to weaponize AI, and they quickly put together like an AI ethics guide. SAP has one. I think IBM has another one, but countries don't, right? We don't have a country-wide ethics guideline for AI. UK just published one, but not many countries have that. And globally, we don't have anything. So I think that's a problem. Like we haven't collectively, thought about these issues and then providing some framework for us to work with.
Well, so Google's funny because on the one hand, some employees criticize working with the government on weaponizing AI, but they work with the Chinese government, communist Chinese government, to further propagate censorship. So you just go, you can't have it both ways, and that's okay.
About the social credits,
Google, and some groups inside of Google are fighting that one too. They say they don't want to do censorship because they know where it's coming next. Goes there, then it comes here, Canada, wherever you go, and then you get that slippery slope of okay, what are we doing now? Who's controlling who? And here we go again. So those are really touchy, scary areas. Google. What was one of Google's philosophies or mottos? do no evil. And I've always said, actually, do less evil. You know, it's like whenever anybody tells you they're doing no evil, you have to be careful. It's sort of like somebody says, I'm an honest politician. Oh, no. You know, it's just...
It's almost an oxymoron. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yep.
I think one of the criticism about their Google AI ethics principle, it's that it's not enough. It's not proactive enough. It's not enough to say do no evil. What are you proactively safeguarding that, right? Like what are some check and balances? What are you doing to make sure you put every effort in to prevent that from happening? Not just passively like, oh, we're not going to do any evil. That's good enough.
Right.
I think that's what
because those are just words.
The criticism.
Yeah, it's just words.
Yeah, and also and not just and the other criticism is that it sounded like the whole principle was drafted by the legal department.
Right.
And it's all about just covering it back, you know.
Yeah. You know, we had a client.
More than trying to do good.
We had a client years ago, and the first meeting we had, they said, we are beyond reproach. And we went grab our wallets. It was quick. And sure enough, after that, they were definitely not beyond reproach. So, you know, it's funny how people usually proclaim what they're not. And it's just an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's the I am not junk phenomena.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have we have time for one more question. Lisa, would you like to?
I just wanted to comment on the last thing we were talking about, which was I think that what happens is we mean well when we're inventing something. We mean well when it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, Stella, about, you know, could we use an AI chatbot to remember one's progress? And, you know, thinking about, can we use their job title? Can we use how they scored on, you know, a previous post test inside of a digital learning opportunity? And we mean well, but what someone could do with that information, if it's in the system and it gets into the wrong hands, you know, how could people use that not for good? I think that, yeah, I think it just starts off with good intentions, and then sometimes people take it to a bad place.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, you know, even if even people didn't take it to a bad place, it could maybe gradually develop out a direction that was unintended, right? It's not even like you don't actually actively do evil. It's sometimes it just, you know, go down another path that you totally didn't think of. It's just like any new technology, right? When you think about the invention of telephone, like it meant to connect people, but you get prank calls, you get telemarketers, you get all kinds of other issues that it's not even intentionally evil. It was being used in a way that we weren't intended to use.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's not too late for that last question, so if you're not thinking so far into the future of what bad could come out of anything you invent, what's your hope for? What's the good thing? What's your good intentions for what you hope to do next?
Oh, I mean, these are more just cautions for people to think about. Essentially I'm an optimist. I'm always excited about like what are the possibilities and what we can do. I think as an L&D professional, I think this is a really good time for us to really claim our seat at the table. I think with all this conversation about digital disruption, about the future of work, about robots going to take over our jobs, I think there's so much more we can do as learning professional to say, here's what we can help, and this is how we can reskill your staff. This is where these are the competencies we need to develop. This is how we can upskill people. I think it's a great place to be. I think this is where we can actually make real impact and help organization to move forward. So I'm excited about that.
Sounds good. And Stella, we really appreciate you coming on today and sharing with us. You'll probably get an invite again, I'm sure.
You guys are great. And you guys are wonderful. And I you know what? I really appreciate these questions because it make me think, more deeply and broadly about them as well.
Well, you said something just now that if you think about it, about the digital destruction and all that, we have a lot of stuff to look at historically. Look what happened to manufacturing jobs all over the world. They became robotized, a lot of them. So we have things that, and unfortunately in those days, nobody thought of reskilling anybody. So you have a whole class of people that got outsourced to basically technology, and that caused a lot of problems. So I think we're there already. We've seen it happen before. Are we ready to do anything about it now? That's going to be the key. But we really
and at the same time, like soft skills, like human connections and an ability to like empathize with one another. Like those are important skills, especially in coaching and mentoring, right? Yep. And those are not something robot can replace. But then how can we develop more of that in people? Like I think those are great. These are great challenges.
We just need to automate them. That's all. I mean.
That's right. To develop computer emotions.
That's right. We're becoming the Jetsons. So anyway, well, hey, thanks again for coming on, Lisa. As always, an absolute pleasure having you here. And if you're watching the show, please subscribe. Give us feedback. We'll have information on how to get a hold of Stella and Lisa while we're at it in the show notes. So we will see you next week on eLearnChat. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks, Stella. Thanks, Lisa.
Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too.